Well, we're excited that you're here with us at the Ransom Church. Before we jump in, just want to remind you one more time of our Easter schedule. Easter is creeping up on us, and so our Easter schedule, we have Good Friday services at 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. at both campuses. Those are separate from our regular Easter services. They're a different service, so if you want to come and remember and reflect on what Christ did for us, you'll want to be at those. There are no tickets needed. Age 0 to 3 childcare, you just show up, and we'd love to worship with you. Easter, we have 9:30 and 11 and 4:30 and 6 p.m. services at both campuses. Now, tickets are needed for those, so in your weekly handout, there should be one of these that you can fill out, and you can tell us how many tickets you need for you and those that you're going to invite and all those good things, and we'll get those tickets to you. You can tell us your childcare need. We do have childcare that day up to 5th grade, so there'll be full childcare at all our services there, and if you could do that, that would help us out. We also have baptism on Easter Sunday, and if that's a step you need to take in your spiritual journey, you can sign up for baptism, and we'd like to make sure that you can participate in that as well. So check that box, and we'll be in touch with you. As is always the case with all of our services, anytime you can come to the later services, the 4:30 p.m., the 6 p.m., that helps us out a lot. So maybe you could switch up your Easter traditions a little bit and sleep in and have family breakfast or go to brunch or do whatever you want to do and then do all your Easter family stuff in the afternoon and then come in the evening to church, and God will still honor you if you switch the order, okay? It's okay. He doesn't mind. And so if you'd help us out and do that, that'd be great. So we're in week 4 of Called Out, wrestling with God's desire for all of us to choose calling over comfort and to follow his call for our lives, even when, honestly, it's not always the easiest thing to do. So today we're going to switch gears a little bit. We've been talking about being called out of things. Today I want to talk to you about something that we're actually called into. I want to talk about how we're called into the world, which at first glance seems backwards. I thought we were set apart, called out from the world to, we're called out of sin and called out of selfishness and called out of complacency. And all of that is true, absolutely true. But what's interesting to me as you look at the narrative, the story of Scripture, is how often God calls his people to be set apart, but rarely ever actually sets them apart. Or to say that a little bit differently, he calls us out from the world while simultaneously leaving us in it. And there is a tension there that we've got to figure out, that we've got to manage. So let's do that. Let's jump into John chapter 17. If you're using one of our Bibles, we'll be on page 649. The ushers are coming around. If you forgot your Bible or you want to follow along, you can raise your hand. They'll give you one, and you can follow along. If you don't own a Bible, please just keep this one. It's our gift to you. But John chapter 17, in this story, it's the night before Jesus went to the cross, and he went to this place called the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. And John gives us insight. John was there. He was one of a few disciples there. He gives us insight into what Jesus prayed about. And much of what John records about this prayer has to do with the Christians being united, about not letting trivial stuff stand in our way of accomplishing all that God has for us. And so we're going to jump into this prayer. And the point we're jumping in at is right about when Jesus starts to pray for his disciples. Okay? So John chapter 17, starting with verse 9. And he prays this. He says, "My prayer is not for the world, but for those you have given me because they belong to you. All who are mine belong to you, and you've given them to me so they bring me glory. Now I'm departing from the world. They're staying in this world, but I'm coming to you. Holy Father, you have given me your name. Now protect them by the power of your name so they will be united just as we are." So Jesus is looking forward to what's going to happen after his death and resurrection. He says, I'm going to leave. I'm physically leaving this world. But they, my disciples, are staying. He said, I'm going to leave this world and I'm going to send my Holy Spirit to believers. But in preparation for leaving, he prays for his disciples because Jesus is leaving behind a group of people that stands in marked contrast to the rest of the world. The things they value, the things they live for are different. The church is not of this world. And because of that, Christ is praying for believers. And what he's praying, he's saying, Father, protect them. See, Jesus understands that these believers need to be unified. If there's one thing we know about Jesus' ministry, it's that his message stands in direct opposition to so much of what the world values. And now he's preparing to leave the earth and to leave behind his disciples with that message. So let's pick it up, verse 13. He says, "Now I'm coming to you. I told them many things while I was with them in this world so they would be filled with my joy. I've given them your word, and the world hates them because they do not belong to this world, just as I do not belong to the world. He says, listen, they don't belong to this world. And this is a very peculiar saying that has become popular in describing Christianity. And maybe you've heard it. It's we are to be in the world, but not of it. You heard that, right? We're to be in the world, but not of it. Even though that's incredibly overused in the Christian subculture, Jesus seems to indicate it's actually quite accurate. In fact, a couple chapters before, in John chapter 15, verse 19, he says this, "The world would love you as one of its own if you belong to it. But you are no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you." Paul also talked about this concept in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. He says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." So there's this clear picture throughout the New Testament that this world is not our home. Now, when the word world is used in the New Testament, there are several different translations. One refers to, the Greek word cosmos refers to like the planet Earth, or its inhabitants, most of who live their lives ignoring God. But Scripture even goes as far at one point as to say that Satan, it gives him the title, the prince of this world. Multiple times in John's gospel, he refers to him this way. In fact, over in 1 John 5, John does the same thing. We read this in 1 John 5:19. "We know that we are children of God, and that the world around us is under the control of the evil one." So the world is under Satan's influence. Now, I don't think that comes as a surprise to you. You live here, okay? You see the world we're living in. You see the things that are going on every day. And Jesus is telling those of us who believe, he's saying, listen, you're no longer part of this world. When you put your faith in Christ, sin's power over you is broken. Now, that doesn't mean you'll never make a mistake, you'll never sin again, but the stranglehold sin had on you breaks. We are no longer trapped by the evil of this world, and the more that we pursue Jesus in this life, the less interesting the world becomes to us. But here's the catch. We still live here, right? He didn't take us out, and this is what's so interesting to me. Jesus clearly tells us the world is full of evil. He clearly tells us that Satan is the ruler of this world and that we're not to be like this world. And he prays in John 17 for our protection in the world, and yet he leaves us here. That's what I would call an oversight. What were you doing? Why didn't you take me with you? But in verse 15, he begins to help us understand that. Look what he says. He says, "I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. Teach your word, which is truth." Now, I don't know if you discovered this yet. When you put your faith in Jesus, that doesn't mean you automatically stop sinning. It doesn't mean that temptations go away. Anybody discovered that yet? You're still kind of tempted sometimes? This is hard, okay? It's a mess. And Jesus understands that. There's great risk in leaving us in the world, and yet that's exactly what he does. And he prays for us. He says, God, protect them in the world. But he doesn't say protect them by removing them from the world. He says protect them by keeping them safe in the world. He doesn't ask God to remove us, and there's a reason for that. Because the world is where God's disciples do his work, and his work is not done. In fact, if Jesus removed us from the world, it would actually frustrate God's divine purpose. And so he doesn't pray that God would remove us from the world. He also doesn't pray that God would make us immune from this world, as if we would never experience the temptations and the hurts of this world. We feel them just like everybody else. In fact, sometimes we feel them exactly because we're Christians. And so he doesn't say remove us from the hurts of this world. But what he says is, God, I pray that you will protect them as they live in the world and that they can reflect me in the midst of it. Now, that was hard then. It's still hard now. And so throughout history, we see typically three different approaches, three different mindsets when it comes to Christianity and what it means to be in the world but not of it. And that's what I want to kind of unpack tonight. And so there's this one mindset that simply is, I call it avoidance of the world. Okay, I'm just going to, I'm in the world, but I'm not of it, so I'm just going to avoid it completely. So, little United States trivia for you. How many of you think that you might be experts on the state of Kentucky? Any Kentucky experts in here? All right, I think you maybe know more than you think. There is a place in our nation, in Kentucky, designed to protect the nation's gold supply. What's the name of it? Fort Knox. Yeah, Fort Knox. You knew more about Kentucky than you thought. You all Kentucky experts. Look at you. Okay, Fort Knox. This is where We keep most of our gold. But that's not all it holds. Fort Knox originally held the Magna Carta, the Gutenberg Bible, the English crown jewels, the gold reserves of several major countries. On December 26, 1941, the nation stored at Fort Knox the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence until they were moved to Washington, D.C. in 1944. Why? Why do they store it there? Because Fort Knox is quite literally a fortress. It's constructed of granite, steel, and concrete. There is more steel in the building of the vault than there is gold stored in the vault. Okay? There is steel plates, steel beams, steel cylinders, steel bands, all encased in solid concrete. The vault door alone weighs 20 tons. Okay? Stealing from this place, getting into this place without authorization is as close to impossible as anything is on this planet. The President of the United States does not know the combination to this vault. It actually takes several Fort Knox staffers, each dialing separate codes at the exact same time in order to unlock the door and get in. There's a guard at every entrance, there's a guard at every gate, and that doesn't include all the James Bond 007 gadgets that we don't even know about, right? So Fort Knox protects our treasure by locking it away, separating it from mankind, and it is not a friendly place to be if you don't belong there. Why do I share this with you? Because most Christians treat the church like Fort Knox. It's our place where we go to be safe from the world and to avoid everything going out there in the culture. And to some extent, this is true. And it should be those things. Some have, chosen to enter into monasteries. Some have chosen to cloister together in their church buildings. We do Christian school. We do Christian college. None of which are a bad thing. They're all good things. In fact, there's a fight going on for the minds of our kids. Why wouldn't we want to hold some of that stuff dear and teach that? And the church needs to be a place where you can go and you can feel safe and where the Word of God is proclaimed without apology, without compromise. And yet, there is an extreme danger when that separation is taken too far, isn't there? When the separation is taken too far, we begin to treat the church like Fort Knox. We protect the treasure that we have by locking it away, separating us from mankind, and we're not a friendly place to be if you don't belong. Now, Jesus prayed for our protection, no doubt. He wanted the Father to shelter us, and yet, at least in some way, Jesus is indicating here that his plan is not to lock us away. Look at verse 15 again. He says, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one, indicating the evil one is actually going to be close enough to get attack on us, right? Jesus is acknowledging the tension. We're encouraged to stay in relationship with the world while being careful to live in a way that pleases God. And so we're less like the guards at Fort Knox and more like ambassadors to God's kingdom. We are no longer from this place. This world is not our home, and we get to show everybody how awesome our heavenly home is and invite them to be part of it. Now that's sadly a far cry from where many Christians are, where many churches are. Because the tendency, it's easy to turn inward upon ourselves. Listen, just because the world is not our home doesn't mean we despise it or the people in it. The people that you come in contact with every day that may hold value systems far different from ours, far different from believers, they're still created in the image of God. And he's longing for somebody to reach out to them. And how many Christians and how many churches we miss that opportunity because we're so focused on this treasure that we have in our hands that we forget that the reason it was given is so we could share it. So that's one mindset. It's like, I'm going to be in the world, but not of it by just avoiding it. That's one extreme. Then there's the other extreme, which I call entanglement in the world. Entanglement in the world. Maybe you heard the last description of avoiding the world and you can't relate at all. You're like, I love this place. That could also lead to being a problem in its extreme. We've got a whole segment of those who claim to be followers of Christ who it's hard to tell the difference between them and the rest of the world. Christianity Today did an article back in 2007 showing the results of a new Barna Group study measuring the lifestyle of Americans who claim to be followers of Christ and Americans who don't. And they found that on average, their lifestyles aren't that different. In fact, they would find that most who claim to follow Christ might be more likely to volunteer in their church, but they're no more likely to help the poor or the homeless. They're just as likely to view sexually explicit movies 14% of them admit to having a sexual encounter within the last 30 days with someone they're not married to. 16% would claim to have been consumed enough alcohol that they were legally drunk in the last month. And as you get younger, as you can imagine, 18 to 22 and then younger, the stats go up. David Kinnaman, director of the study, commented this way. He said, Americans are a unique blend of contradictions. The respect, patience, self-control, and kindness of born-again Christians should astound people. But the lifestyles and relationships of born-again believers, or those who claim to be born-again believers, are not much different than others. Here's the point. Here's what happens to a major segment of the church. We want to follow God. The problem is we're entangled in the world. We get sucked into its value system until it's hard to tell where the world ends and we begin. And this is where it becomes so important to understand the difference between being in the world and actually being of the world. To be in the world speaks to our point of location. We are located in the world. Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. He talks about how we would have to leave this planet to get away from immoral things and immoral people. Like, we'd have to leave the planet. But that's not what God asks us to do. He put us here on purpose. You might be in a location in your life, your work or your school or even your marriage, where your Christian worldview is constantly being challenged. I have people say to me all the time, I just wish I could work in a more, Christ-like environment. Man, I wish that for you too. But maybe it's not all bad. God may have placed you there to be Christ in that place, to have a positive impact on those who don't know Jesus. We're located in the world, and that's according to God's perfect plan. He wants you here. So in the world speaks to a point of location. Of the world is different. Of the world speaks to our source of information. And this is where I think a lot of Christians get caught. Repeated exposure to ungodly things can have an impact on your Christian worldview. It can start to change the way that you think, slowly, imperceptibly over time, whittling away at our value system. It's one thing to live in these environments. It's another thing entirely to draw our information from those environments. God is not trying to isolate our location, but He is trying to be our isolated source of information. And not really our isolated, but our true, primary source of information. And this is where we find a balance between these two extremes. On the one hand, you got those who avoid the world. On the other, you have those who get entangled in the world. And then mindset number 3 is right in the middle. It's what I call dynamic interaction with the world. To dynamically interact with the world. John chapter 17, verse 18. Jesus prays, He says, just as you sent me into the world, now I'm sending them into the world. So here Jesus is calling us into the world. So he calls us out of the world, sets us apart, and then sends us right back into the fray. That's His plan. And He's very much at risk of or aware of the risk that we're in, because the world hated Jesus. And so a lot of times they hate His followers, and yet He tells us to go into that world and to share the truth of who Jesus is. I was trying to come up with an illustration to kind of give you a mental picture of what that looks like. And the best that I could come up with is a scuba diver. Okay? Scuba divers spend their time in the water, but the entire time they're breathing what? Air. Yeah, oxygen. They bring their environment with them. In fact, when their environment runs out, they have to surface. They have to get out of that environment. Now, obviously, that's a far from perfect picture, but at least it's a picture. And I think far too many Christians, we're not only in the world, we are also acting as if we are part of it. We're like a scuba diver without his mouthpiece, without his regulator. We're trying to breathe underwater and wondering why we feel like we're drowning in this culture. And Jesus says, I'm sending you into the world, indicating we're not of it. And just as Jesus was not of this world, but God sent Him into the world to save it, so those who put our faith in Jesus Christ, we're no longer citizens of this earth. Scripture describes us as aliens and strangers in this world. We are now citizens of a heavenly kingdom, and Jesus has sent us to this world on His behalf as ambassadors for that kingdom. So we're not to become part of the world, but neither are we to blindly walk by, ignoring everything that's happening around us. We're here to reach the world. John 3:16 and 17 is a perfect example of this. It says, for this is how God loved the world. He gave His one and only Son so that everyone who believes in Him will not perish, but have eternal life. God sent His Son into the world not to judge the world, but to save the world through Him. God sent Jesus into the world to help save it. Here's the most amazing part. In John 17, verse 18, which we just read, Jesus tells me, just as God sent me into the world, so I am sending you. Now, no, he's not saying you have the power to save. Only God can do that. What he is saying is that you are ambassadors. You are on this planet with one purpose. Tell people about Jesus. It's why he left us here. I've had people talk to me throughout this generosity initiative about, well, are we like jumping the gun on West Campus? Do we really need West Campus? Like, is it really needed? Is it really that big of a deal? And so we did a little research. 7 years ago, citydata.com did a study of Minnehaha County. Here's what they found. They found that 21,832 people would consider themselves to be part of an evangelical church. By the way, that would be us. We fall into that category. Another 49,759 would claim to be part of a mainline church. 30,335 would be part of a Catholic church. But the number that staggered me and caught my attention was that in Minnehaha County, 7 years ago, there were 64,427 who say, I have no religious affiliation. 64,000. Do you think that's gotten better or worse in the last 7 years? Yeah, right? You add Lincoln County to that, and the number of people 7 years ago in our community who said they have no church affiliation is 92,000 people. Do we need West Campus? We can't build it fast enough. I don't know how much time they have left. There are 92,000 souls that we can count that do not know Jesus. And yet, how often do we, instead of doing everything we can to point them to the one who would save them, how often do we spend time doing the things that Jesus told us not to do, judging them or ignoring them or forgetting about them? So what does dynamic interaction with the world look like? I found a letter that I thought described it well. This person writes this: Christians are not differentiated from other people by country, language, or customs. You see, they did not live in cities of their own or speak some strange dialect or have some peculiar lifestyle. They live in both local and foreign cities wherever chance has put them. They follow local customs in clothing, food, and other aspects of life, but at the same time, they demonstrate to us the wonderful and certainly unusual form of their own citizenship. They live in their own native lands, but as aliens. As citizens, they share all things with others, but like aliens, they suffer all things. Every foreign country is to them as their native country, and every native land is a foreign country. They're treated outrageously and behave respectfully to others. When they do good, they're punished as evildoers. When punished, they rejoice as if being given new life. They're attacked by Jews as aliens, they're persecuted by Greeks, yet those who hate them cannot give any reason for their hostility. To put it simply, the soul is to the body as Christians are to the world. The soul is spread through all parts of the body, and Christians through all the cities of the world. The soul is in the body, but is not of the body. Christians are in the world, but not of the world. What a great illustration. Now, you might say, who wrote that? Billy Graham, Eugene Peterson? Actually, this was written by an unknown source to a man named Diognetus in the 2nd century. Here's why I share a crusty old letter, because it's not a crusty old letter. This has always been a mystery. This tension has always existed in Christianity. It is not a problem that we're going to solve. It is a tension to be managed. We are called to be in the world, to be Jesus Christ in this world, but not to become the world. To dynamically interact with the world in a way that allows us to be relevant, but never allows us to compromise. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about this series called out being more than just a series. It's a clarion call to every tender of the ransom. God has placed some visions on our hearts in 2017 to be, as a church, to be in the world, but not of it, and to dynamically interact with our region in a way that is real and relevant, but that never, ever compromises the gospel. But it takes everybody who calls Ransom home to choose calling over comfort and to commit to that season and say, God, we're going to follow you rather than do what's comfortable. And that's what the Called Out Initiative is all about. And we've been saying, we think this call is holistic, that it involves starting new campuses, it involves supporting local causes, supporting global initiatives. And in this season, we're just asking everyone here to help us in this vision through your generosity. God has entrusted this church, not us, but this church, with a vision. We opened South Campus just a little while ago, And they opened with over 700 people. I think they're averaging like 500 people. That's crazy. That's crazy. Cody reported to me a salvation that happened this morning. That campus didn't exist, and people are being saved. But that's just the beginning. You know, we want to do West Campus. We want to do other campuses, and we want to keep reaching as far as God will let us reach. God is just doing incredible things here, but we believe it's just the beginning. Do you know anybody who needs to, find Jesus? Anybody that you run into daily that needs Jesus? What if we could put a campus near them? That's what this initiative allows us to do. That's the vision we're aiming for, because every single person matters. Everyone who doesn't know Jesus matters. And so every one of us is needed, and every gift matters, and this is where the rubber meets the road. Next Sunday, April 9th, is Ransom Commitment Sunday. We're going to issue a challenge to make a pledge, fill out a card of what you can sacrifice to help us chase this vision. Because every campus we open is actually an opportunity to be in the world while remaining unique and distinct from the culture. These campuses are the most evangelistic and missional tools to reach our community that we have. And next Sunday, we're going to be, on Ransom Commitment Sunday, we've been talking, we're going to ask for two things for everyone: 100% participation, 100% sacrifice. First, we're looking for everyone who calls Ransom home to say, I'll fill out a pledge card. Here's what that card looks like. It just says, by faith, I as an individual, or we as a family, commit to give a total of, and then you just write your amount, not, this per month, or this, but over the 2 years, this is what I'm going to give, above and beyond what I'm already giving, to chase this vision of where we're going. And we really believe that everybody could have a number, and that this is critical because we need to know that we're in this together. It takes every one of us. It takes every one of us saying, I don't know what my number is, and it doesn't matter whether your number is bigger or smaller than the person next to you. Nobody's looking at that. As long as it's a sacrifice to you, what does it look like for you to risk? It's not equal giving, it's equal sacrifice. Now, I want to be clear. We're leading the charge. Okay, we're not asking you to do something that we haven't already done. Steph and I have been wrestling with the things that we're going to have to give up in order to take on this God-sized pledge we feel like we're making, that God's stretching us, and we're thinking about it differently. We're saying, God, we don't want to just ask you what you would have us give. What will you let us keep? You can have everything else. Just what would you have us do, God? We want to listen, and our staff is in on this. Our elders are in on this. We're approaching 100 leaders who have already said, hey, I need to be a part of this. I want to be involved in this, and they've shared their pledge, and people are doing crazy things. One person, their biggest gift was here. They exceeded their biggest gift in the past by like 20 times. One person over the next 2 years says, I've been tithing, but I'm going to give 500% above that over the next 2 years. That is mind-boggling, and it's not about those numbers, it's about those stories. What is your story of what God would say, hey, I want you to do this thing. I want you to own this thing. Yeah, we got to raise $1.9 million. That's a crazy big number for one person or 2 or 10. But for all of us, we can do this. Every card matters. So don't believe the lie, God can't use you and that your gift doesn't matter. Here's just one story of what God's doing in one couple. Listen to Colin and Christy's story.
God led us to check the Ransom out. It was like the second weekend that the Ransom was actually open. In this building, yeah. So we came here and we both left, and we just looked at each other and said we knew this was where God was leading us to be a part of. So it's been about since 2011.
One spiritually defining moment for us is definitely our wedding. We started going to the Ransom kind of early, and we were able to, they were still doing weddings here, and so Phil married us, and Steph was our wedding planner coordinator.
We've got a lot of friends and family that still aren't following Jesus 100%. Obviously for my love for Christy, it was just amazing to hear those words as he's speaking over us, but also for our family and friends to hear the word of Christ and truth. It was so cool, and it just again just kind of resonated of, this is where God has us, the Ransom. This is where we're supposed to be. It's just fun to watch people's lives change, people that Christy and I have known outside of church that now are coming to church, and just seeing their lives completely transformed and changed when they've allowed Christ to get in their life, and really have allowed getting involved in the ransom and getting involved in the DNA of living free and serving free and just diving full into the mission. God has really blessed us in so many ways, and He blesses everybody in each and every way. And one way He is blessing us is just through generosity right now, and we're just excited to see where this is going to lead and how many lives God is going to change in giving our time and our efforts and money, whatever that's going to look like. It's fun because we're all in.
Phil told us recently, we're not out to just get neighborhoods for Christ. We're out to get entire zip codes, and that just is so inspiring. And we love that just the culture of Sioux Falls could change in that way, and we could be a city that serves each other and loves each other and follows Christ.
One of the reasons we got involved with the Ransom is we believe 100% of the mission of the calling that God has on the Ransom and the leaders of this church to live free, to serve free, to worship free. And I love that with generosity it gets us out of our comfort zone, and that is just so fun and exciting.
So Colin said something in that testimony that the first time I heard it, it's just resonated with me. And I just, every time I hear it, it's the line that sticks out to me. Because his mentality is different. He did not say, God blessed us by being generous to us. He said, God blessed us through generosity. That through asking us, what will you do? How will you invest in the kingdom? He's stretching that couple in powerful, powerful ways. And really, ultimately, this just comes down to, we've got this week and then next week, and some people are like, yes, finally, this will be over. But here's the reality. We're like that because we don't like what it pokes in us. We don't like, we don't like the stretch. We don't like the challenge. But this is a great opportunity. This is just a great way to be in this world, but not to be of it. To say, you know what, I'm going to take income that I could spend on the things of this world, and I'm going to invest it in this next season in kingdom work instead. God, you just tell me what to do, and I'm going to invest in kingdom work through the Ransom. This is something that we get to do together. It's something that we must do together, but before you can ever do it, you have to unpack the lies that the enemy wants to tell you. You got to unpack the lies. You got to unpack the lie that there's nothing you can do, that your gift would be too small. You got to unpack the lie that you're just not in a season where you can do anything right now. You got to unpack the lie that Ransom's just all about money, that this is even about money. It's not about money. It's about kingdom. It's about the kingdom. It's about kingdom work. You got to unpack the lie that, they're just trying to build their bigger kingdom. No, we're not. We're trying to build His kingdom. And that's not about us at all. It'd be a whole lot easier to not do any other more campuses. Whole lot easier. But I can't sleep at night because of the 92,000 souls. And you've got to wrestle with that in your heart. And you got to say, God, is this of you? Do I trust this? Am I behind this? Is my heart right in this? And you got to unpack the lies of the enemy. You can give sacrificially to this no matter what you give. Even if what you're currently giving is zero, okay? If what you currently give to the Ransom Church is zero, it should be really easy for you to pledge more than that. Like one. I don't even know one what. One something. 1 peso. One, anything is bigger than zero, right? But I don't think God's going to ask you for one. I think He's going to say, it's time to invest. And maybe for you that's going to mean changing your lifestyle. What could you not pay for? What could you give up in order to reach this? We've talked about giving up a Starbucks a week or giving up your cable bill. Maybe you've got a car payment or 2 car payments. Maybe you could give up one of them, quit leasing one vehicle or whatever. And then one of you could buy a car, that the kind where you pay cash for them and you have to anoint them with oil, like a quart a week, and you just lay hands on it and pray every, dear Jesus, just 2 years, Lord, 2 years, and maybe that will be your sacrifice. Maybe you're investing in your future, and that's a beautiful thing. And maybe you could say, you know what, for just this season, for the next 2 years, I'm going to invest just a little bit less in the future, and I'm going to invest in the kingdom. I'm going to still make an investment. I don't know what God's going to do in you. I do know this. This is where the enemy wants to lie, and this is where the rubber meets the road, and next week is it. And so what I want to do to end our service is just pray over you. Can I do that? So let's just bow our heads. And Heavenly Father, you do what you're going to do. I'm not concerned about the money. I could care less about the money piece of it because this isn't a money thing. But you've called us to a vision, and you need to provide for it. And so you do what you're going to do. But what I am concerned about is every single person's story. And what you want to do in our hearts is you shape us and you mold us and you ask us to invest in something greater than ourselves, and you stretch us. And so, God, I pray that you would do in our souls the work that needs to be done in our souls. Everything else will take care of itself. But God, we lay our souls before you. And we say, have your way, God. Show us what you would have us do. In your name, amen.